everyone, to another episode of Borderless Diaries. Today's episode is very special to me personally. When I was younger, I didn't just follow field hockey, but I followed leadership and coaches that inspire me to become a better coach as well. But not only just because of the results or the success, but really the way that he reflected on himself, but also how he dared to question himself, the way he spoke about growth, about failure, and about evolving into a better leader. Marc, it's truly an honor to have you here. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
As always, every guest starts with the same question. What is one of the most unforgettable, downright awkward, or funny experience you've had while adjusting to a new country?
Well, the most stupid thing I did like a coach was demanding my players in the first years, demanding too much. You need to do this, you need to do that. And then later, a mentor coach came to me. He said, Mark, stop with it because people want to change, but people don't want to be changed. And then I said, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? He said, well, you need to involve your players. If not, you're never going to win the gold medal in Olympic Games. They need to be the owner. So I started asking more open questions. What do you think you can improve tomorrow against Argentina? And then my players had to think and they had to come out with an answer. And if you are allowed to think about your answer, your plan, and you're also allowed to do it, you run for it, you fight for it. You're the owner of the plan. So I was in the first years, I was a stupid coach, old fashioned from up to down, telling a lot of things. So I learned a lot and I still shame myself a little bit if I see my team talks again from 20 years ago. Now it's really completely different. You try to involve your players.
Yeah. Oh, but I really like that. Did you see also a difference in between those countries? Because you've worked in different countries. You worked in Spain and in Belgium throughout the years. Did you notice a difference when you were in that area and the way that you were coaching in that country? Was that also when you evolved as a leader?
Yeah, of course. Of course, in the Netherlands, everybody has a big mouth. Everybody wants to be involved. And in other countries, it's less like that. But still, the people need to be the owner. Still, my players need to be the owner of the strategy and the owner of their improvements. So it doesn't matter if it's Spain or it's India or it's England. I've been to the Toyota factory in Japan. And well, Japan is really from up to down, hierarchic from up. But they ask people down in the factory which improvements we can make. And if you can do it in Japan, you can do it everywhere. So they involve the employees to think about improvements. Well, that's the same in top sport. I also played in a national team. I was like a player, but so I was already traveling a lot to different countries, especially to countries, well, you don't want to go there. It's Pakistan, India. We had to play their games. So I was traveling a lot, but like a coach is different because you're a little bit more alone. Like a player, you have teammates, talk about, you make fun. But like a coach, you're really alone. You have an assistant coach, but you need to make the decisions finally.
Yeah.
And in the first years, I was really struggling with isolation and the only person who made the decisions in the top sport. And that's why I involved also my players, my assistant coach, to be owner of also the decision making.
Yeah, I think that is very true. And I think it's also inspiring to hear from you that indeed sometimes to be a leader or being in different countries and navigating through that it can feel lonely or isolating, trying to figure things out. And so I think it's super helpful for the listeners here today to also hear that there are ups and downs going through those motions of becoming a leader, becoming part of kind of a strategy and doing that together versus feeling that alone. Do you remember when you had that first night in a country abroad and what made you say yes to that adventure, but also how did you adjust it to that new environment? What was that feel like?
Well, first of all, I have to explain a little bit my background. When I was at school, I was really bad at school. Later, when I was 25 years old, I find out that I'm heavily dyslexic. But I didn't know when I was in school. I was always a shy guy. I was always afraid. I always had headaches. And I got all those bad results back, and they make jokes about me. And the English teacher went so angry to me. He said, out, you don't reach anything in life, he said to me. So I went out crying on my bicycle to home. And I arrived at home and I asked my mother, Mom, please, can I go to the sport academy?
Hmm.
And I was allowed to go to the sport academy. And for the first time in my life, I got good results on my report because it was coaching and teaching, because
Yeah.
there's no reading. So I thought I can do something. You don't earn money with it, but I continue.
Yeah.
So I start train a lot of youth teams in my clubs, and I got compliments and I got self-confidence. And they
Yeah.
asked me to be the head coach of Spain, but I was only 26 years old. And some of the players were older than myself. But finally we did a good job there. And well, later we won the World Cup and the Olympic Games. We won. And I remember that after the Olympic Games, I went to buy a bottle of wine. And I went with the bottle of wine to the school and I wanted to give to the English teacher. But he was not there anymore. But I wanted to tell him, thank you very much that you heard me, because
Yeah.
now I know where my talent is. And now you
Yes.
know why my English is so bad. But
Yes.
it's all about everybody has a talent.
Yeah.
And my talent was in sports.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn, you need to get abroad, to get out of your comfort zone. And
Yeah.
especially if you want to be a good coach in the Netherlands, in my country,
Mhm.
it's the best way to go out to see another country,
Yeah.
because I think you need to learn yourself a little bit better than in the Netherlands, and you
Yeah.
learn yourself better. You need to make the decisions. It's a difficult world, difficult culture,
Yeah.
and so for me the first struggle was that I remember when I started in Spain. Was the first struggle was that there was a big fight between the Catalunya players and the Madrid players. So I was surprised, and
Yeah.
I said, well, let's speak everything in Spanish because I learned Spanish in the Netherlands. But then they said, no, we are always talking Catalan with the Catalan players. I said, no, we are one team, one language. So we have to do it in Spain. So that was the first problem I got with the Spanish national team, with the different cultures.
Yeah. I can only imagine indeed. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing because I think a lot of younger people, including myself, didn't have the easiest time in school. Funny enough, they also said to me, you will never become somebody and you will never make it. And I remember it was actually a question in my higher education. And it was the first day, and the teacher was going around the table asking everybody, like, what do you want to become after you graduate from this college? And I was like, I really want to work at Google. And I had this mindset of, oh, I want to work there. It seems like a fun environment and I want to become a leader. And then the teacher told me, well, that's fun, but now something realistic. And then years later, now I work at Microsoft. I got actually an email from that teacher if I wanted to become a speaker. And I was like, I don't know, but I did accept it, but I was kind of like, you told me that I wouldn't make it. So I think everybody needs to have maybe also hit that rock bottom or get that feedback from somebody and kind of it fuels kind of your motivation to do something then that is more closely aligned to who you are. So I mean, it's not great that you were hurt by your teacher, but at the same time, it created kind of, hey, what do I maybe want in life? What is something that feels more aligned to what I want to achieve in life? So in some way, it's also something that came on your path and something good turned out in your career.
Yeah, you need some challenges also in your life. And I always say playing football or playing hockey without goals, that's
Yeah.
really boring. So I think it's good to have some dream goals, and dream goals are far away. You don't have to go there, but you're allowed to go there.
Yeah.
And I think that was also in my case was, well, I wanted to do something in top sport. I
Yeah.
didn't think about the gold medal of the Olympic Games. That was far
Yeah.
away. But I
Yeah.
was thinking about my talent is teaching. And so I started with the young kids in my club, and then, well, then little by little you grow in the International Hockey Federation. That's why I still think about those challenges you mentioned.
Yeah.
That's I think everybody needs challenges, needs targets, need goals to
Yeah.
get there, and you need to
Yeah.
believe in it. I was believing that I can give a good training. I can do a good job. I didn't know that I won the gold medal, but I knew that I can do it, and
Yeah.
I can go to the Olympic Games maybe once in my life.
Yeah. Well, you did achieve that. That is, and it's very inspiring the way that you came about that. Were there ever kind of the moments when you were living abroad and you were feeling that distance? You mentioned being kind of lonely and the struggles, maybe how to get a team together with all of the different languages and cultures. Was there a moment that you thought, this is not what I expected it to be when I made that move abroad, and these were the challenges, what was harder in that expectation?
Well, first of all, I think it's really important if you go abroad is to prepare yourself. I don't know, I don't have 100% influence if we win the game there,
Yeah.
but I've 100% influence to prepare myself. So I always, if I went to another country, I always was going to the nuns in Vught in the Netherlands to learn Spanish, and you got
Yeah.
also that lessons of culture in Spain. So I was aware about that, but still, if you're aware and you're prepared, still it's difficult because if you're really there and after 2 months you want to go back to the Netherlands, but there was no time because you had a lot of training sessions, a lot of coaching
Yeah.
drills. My family was still living in the Netherlands in the first 2 months, so I was really lonely, and I was
Yeah.
every evening really tired to concentrate about the language and all those
Yeah.
problems. And at the beginning, you get a lot of things to you, your house, your car, the paperwork, and you have to do your job, and you're alone. So you only can call your family at home.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I definitely recognize that because I think it's you can prepare yourself as much as you can, but you have to go through those first moments yourself
Yeah.
and trying to figure it out and kind of see what's going on. And it's exhausting at times to figure out how to land in a place and to find your own rhythms and all of the things that you need to do. So I think it's definitely recognizable for people. I just wanted to go back to kind of the coaching as well, because that is one of the reasons why I reached out to you. And when I was a basketball coach myself many years ago, I saw you on stage, your books, and I read a lot about you and your leadership style. You speak about this in your books as well, but the way that you transformed your leadership style, where did the courage come from to have that self reflection to become a better leader and to become the ultimately the coach and the teacher that you became later in your career? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, there always have to be a crisis. Always have to be a really bad moment that you realize that you need to change. So one of the biggest crises in my life was that the first 4 years when I was the coach of the Dutch women field hockey team, the first 4 years we always arrived second. Always we lost the final. We lost the final in the World Cup. We lost the final in the European Cup. We lost the final in the Olympic Games. And I remember that I was always complaining that we had bad luck. We had 3 times the post. The umpire was against us. The pitch was too dry. They didn't water the pitch. I always had excuses. But I remember that after the Olympic final we lost, they killed me in the media. And one of the volleyball coaches came to me. And his name was Joop Alberda. He won the gold medal in Atlanta in '96. And he came to me and he took me really fast like this and strong like this. And he asked me, why you always arrive second? And I again said, yeah, we have bad luck. We hit 3 times the post. He said, stop. If you hit once time the post, it's bad luck. If you hit 2 times the post, it's really bad luck. But if you hit 3 times the post, you don't hit well. You have to hit inside the post. And I was surprised. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, a good hockey player is not always a good coach. You need to do some masterclass in leadership. So from that moment, that was a really key turning point in my life. I went to a lot of courses. I did MBTI, I did Tuckman, Lean, Agile, Scrum,
Yeah.
NLP, systems. I did a lot of courses. And there I realized that a good coach
Yeah.
is not only what he is thinking, he needs
Yeah.
to involve his players. He needs to focus on the strength of players, not on the weakness. He needs to have fun in the team and not only winning, 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 because on winning, you don't have 100% influence on.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a key turning moment in my life that the volleyball coach told me, you have to hit inside the post.
Yeah. That is really good. And I think that is also super inspiring to get those people around you to get that kind of you're hitting that wall, but also somebody that wants to help you achieve what you also want to achieve and to find that common goal or inspiration. That sounds yeah, it sounds inspiring as well and a good reflection that you got from him.
Yeah, and later I also learned that it's always who's coaching the coach.
Yeah.
Later, I always ask 2 or 3 people around myself to
Yeah.
coach me once a month. And also, if you go abroad, I also went to Spain and I asked an old hockey coach. I was really inspired by him. I asked him, "Can you be my mental coach? Because I want once a month. I want to go for dinner with you, and
Yeah.
please tell me, help me with my struggles in Spain. Help me with the problems." And that was really always exciting and really inspiring for me to have a coach in that country. Because always in business, there are people who maybe already did it. Who's coaching the coach? Ask
Yeah.
for coaching if you go abroad.
Yeah. I think that is really good advice for people because I think a lot of, especially younger folks, and I recognize this myself. So it's also a good reflection for me is that they're struggling to find and do everything themselves and to go through the struggles and go through the ups and downs. But even if you're then going to celebrate a win, nobody's going to be there with you to celebrate that. But also when you're feeling down or struggling with certain things, you're also going through that by yourself. And I think it's so powerful to have a coach or a mentor, whether you are the coach yourself or if you're not a leadership position, to find people that inspire you, but also the ones that give you good self reflection and where you can grow from. So I think that is really, really good advice for the people listening here today. How was it because of the courses that you did and that first moment of self reflection that you were trying to find new mentors around you in a country, or how did you come by to choose that self reflection and that mentorship and coaching around you?
Yeah, I, I, I think it's good to be vulnerable. If things are going wrong one time, okay, it can be bad luck. 2 times can
Yeah,
be bad luck, but 3 times is a pattern. You need to
yeah,
change something. And for me, that was a signal that I had need to learn a little bit more about myself and about my players, about other people. And I always try to copy my players to my discipline, to my passion. But well, one of the mental coaches told me, he said, "Mark, you never scored a goal, so you never win the game. Yeah,
yeah,
you can't play with 80 Marc Lammers because you never
yeah,
scored. And so you need also lazy attackers, sales guys who score the ball. And you
yeah,
were a center defender and you were
yeah,
thinking about structure. But
yeah,
nobody's the same as you. So you need to work
yeah,
on diversity and you
yeah,
need to realize that everybody is different and you need to recognize the difference between an introvert player and an extrovert
yeah,
player. You need to admit it and then you will accept the other players that
yeah,
nobody is the same as you.
yeah. I can only imagine that. I think that's super wise. Who inspired you?
Well, I told you the volleyball coach, but also my mother inspired me. She was
Yeah,
always thinking ahead, always thinking about things are going on in the world, and she was always inspiring myself and other coaches. I learned a lot from different coaches, and I don't have a really one hero, but
yeah,
I learned a lot from Louis van Gaal, the football coach. I learned a
yeah,
lot from different sports.
yeah,
And everybody has a strength. So I inspired by the strength of people.
yeah. Yeah. I think that is good as well because if you view that in that diversity, you can kind of pick and choose like, oh, this style for that person, that specific skill that he has, that is
Yeah.
something that I can learn from, but that doesn't necessarily mean all of the skills of that person. So you can find and collect people around you that you can learn from and be inspired by. And I think it's good advice for the people that are listening in here today. Maybe not to focus too much on one person, but really spread your network of mentors and the people that you are inspired by to get those skills, but also to learn from them. And to learn from their experiences and the way that they came about certain things in growth. So I really like that perspective, and especially your mother as well. I think it's always good to have that mother figure in your life where you can be inspired by. The world sees a lot of Olympic success, and the people see the great success, a top hockey coach, player, lived abroad, all of those things. What did those years actually demand from you personally?
I think you learn more to go abroad than in the university. Because in university you learn a lot about the EQ, but the EQ,
Yeah,
the intelligence you can find on the internet. GPT
yeah,
gives you the information. But the EQ, the emotional quotient, empathy, empowerment, you learn from your experience. And if you go to different countries, you learn a lot of things about culture, a lot of things about different people, different way of thinking, and it made my vision a little bit bigger about the world, and I recognize more why people are thinking maybe different than maybe we in the West or in Europe, and that opens up different perspective about the world. And for me, that was it was always nice. And in every country, there were a lot of problems with culture, but I learned that if you go abroad with your teams and you're a leader there or your coach there, it's really important not to do too much feedback with your players there. Because if you
yeah,
do feedback, if I did feedback with the Spanish players, they were fighting, Catalonia, Madrid, Catalonia, said stop, stop, stop. We don't
yeah,
do feedback anymore because it gives negative energy and
yeah,
you get angry, you get bad feelings, and you have excuses and you blame each other in
yeah,
feedback. So I learned to do, if you go abroad, not to use feedback in your team, but to use feed forward. Feed forward. What
yeah,
can we do better together? So
yeah,
you don't talk about the past anymore. What can we do better? And of
yeah,
course, you need to analyze. You need to analyze because you ask improvements. For example, I can talk about which language we talk. Yeah, Catalonia, Spanish. Catalonia, Spanish. No, no, no. Which language we gonna talk next year? Yeah, we do
yeah,
everything English. Okay, perfect.
yeah,
So ask your players feed forward. Then you don't have the problems of culture.
yeah,
And they all also need to think about how do we make one team of those two
yeah,
girls?
yeah. Oh, that is really good feedback in terms of if you're looking at a team and how you want to grow, to look more what is the common goal that you want to work towards to as a team, and how can you be inspiring? Because I do think a lot of cases that we are looking too much about the negativity. Feedback in itself has this also a stigma around it, but the reality of it as well is that we're talking about everything that's not working well for you and what you personally can change to make something better, which is not always going to help achieve what you want to achieve, and that is becoming better. And it's good to look how you can change and how you can grow, but I think it's super powerful to do that in a positive way. And what is that common goal that we're looking for? Because that is one of the things that actually inspired me to follow your leadership is that positive mindset. And we actually implemented that in my team at the time as well, to look at what is the common goal, what is the positive way that we can look towards each other, because we had a time where people were fighting a little bit, especially the younger girls. They always had something going on. And it was a good way of not looking at the differences and not looking too much at this is something that you need to improve. No, what do we as a team collectively can do to become winners or to become whatever your goal is in a team? So I think it's something that I learned a lot from you actually, in the way that you teach
Yeah,
and coach your teams.
the big advantage of feed forward is that you get positive energy. It's still in front of you. You still can do it. If we lose the game or something went wrong, you can talk with each other about why it went wrong. And
Yeah,
then you're going to find excuses and you blame each other.
yeah,
So I don't ask why it went wrong. I ask, what do we need to do to win next game? And then immediately you get positive
yeah,
action points. We
yeah,
need to do this. We need to work together. We need to have one language. And then they are more working together, and they
yeah,
come not with excuses. They come with solutions.
Yeah.
So with back, you get excuses. With feed forward, you get solutions. And they, of course, they need to think. Yeah? They need to think
Yeah.
backwards
Yeah.
to get that solution.
Yeah.
But it's all positive. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I really like that analogy. And I think it's really powerful as well. And a lot of listeners are probably a little bit earlier in careers. What type of advice would you give them if they're not in a leadership position just yet, but to want to become a leader? What type of advice would you give them?
Yeah, you can involve all your you can involve your players, your employees down who are down under you, but you also can involve your boss. I
Yeah.
remember that the first 4 years, I always asked my boss, "Can I get money for this? Can I get money for that?" And I always get advice. And I was always struggling with him. And then I asked him an open question and said, "Well, do you want to sit with my players and talk about our problems? Because if we want to win something in the future, you need to help us. You are so important. You are my boss. You're the president of the Hockey Federation. I need you. Can you help me, please?" And he said, "Yes, yes, yeah, I can help you. Okay, come next Monday and we talk about which things we need like a team to win the next Olympic Games."
Yeah.
And then my player said, "Yeah, we need to stay more together. We need to train more together. We need to stay in a hotel." And I always asked my president, "We need to stay in a hotel." He said, "No, there's no money for
Yeah.
traveler up and down. It's no problem." So I ask money. I always get advice. But then I changed it. And I asked him to come over on Monday, and he was talking with the players. And then he came to me. He said, "Mark, it's better to stay in a hotel and to stay together." I said, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I told you 4 years."
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really important. I hear the girls talking about it. It's really important. And I think it's the best to win the Olympic Games in the future. I said, "Yeah, but who's going to pay?" He
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, we have some money there. We have some money
Yeah.
there." And I will ask the press. I said, "If you ask money, you get advice. If you
Yeah.
ask advice, you get money."
Yeah.
You also can involve, if you're not the leader, you can involve
Yeah.
your leader. And what I mean to say is, if you have a good idea abroad, don't say to them, "We need to do this, we need to do that." No. First, ask him what's the common goal. Okay, the
Yeah.
common goal is to win the customer or the consumer.
Yeah.
Okay, how can we win the consumer? Yeah, we need to do this, we need to do that. Okay, make him also the owner of your ID or
Yeah.
your problem. Make
Yeah.
him the owner of your problem. And the wrong thing we do a lot if we go abroad is that we want to change things.
Yeah.
And people want to change, but don't want to be changed,
Yeah.
especially not for a foreigner.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go abroad, don't tell your opinion. Try to get commitment. And you get that commitment with those small feed forward questions. Okay, what
Yeah.
can we do better here? And you need to ask the small questions, because I also had a manager who went to Belgium and he said, "Yeah, but the open question is not working." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Yeah, I got stupid answers." I said, "Then you ask stupid questions." He said, "No, no, no. I asked your feed forward questions, your open questions." I said, "Well, what did you ask your team?" He said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I asked my team what can be better." And
Yeah.
then they said, "I want more salary. I want on Friday a free day. And the toilet paper at the head office can be soft. It's really painful." I said, "That's the wrong question. If you ask, how can we raise the
Yeah.
value of the customer? The
Yeah.
salary has
Yeah.
to be lower. And no free day. The customer wants you 7 days, 24 hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the toilet paper at the head office is not important, but because the customer never is at the head office." So
Yeah.
ask the right open questions if you go abroad.
Yeah.
Don't tell the people there immediately, "I'm from outside. I'm from
Yeah.
the Netherlands, so we're going to do this, then this." Then you get a lot of resistance.
Yeah. I think that is super valuable because I think in a lot of cases, and I noticed it when I moved abroad for the first time, I was like, well, this is how I learned it, or this is the way that we have been taught to do this. So this must be the way to make success. But the reality is, every situation is different, and you need to get that common goal. You need to ask those open questions. Also, to feel accepted because you're not automatically accepted into a new country, into a new team, or new dynamics. And so I think it's very important for people to, including myself, to ask the open questions, to get involvement, and to be also accepted into a team, and to maybe choose the path of least resistance and how to get there. So I think I will never forget the toilet paper right now. I think as well, and we're kind of going into the wrap up of today's session, but you talked a lot about your way of moving abroad, etc. If you're looking back right now, what is the most proud moment that you had? Well, adjusting to a new country, but also in your career, what is a proud moment for you?
Well, the every country there was a proud moment. I played 1 year like a professional hockey player in Italy, and we immediately won the Italian league there. So I was proud. I was 20 years old, and I was a player, trainer, coach. I did everything, and we won the Italian league there. With the Spanish team, we went from the fourth place to the second place. I'm sorry, from the eighth place to the fourth place. So I was proud about the improvement, and also with the Dutch team from the fourth place to the first place. So for me, I always say winners always have a plan. Losers often have an excuse.
Yeah,
But for me, a winner is also if somebody goes from number 4 in the world ranking to number 2 is also a winner. He won places. And it's not always number 1 is winning. There are more teams winning if you do it better than before.
yeah,
And with all the teams, I always try to get those improvements because those improvements I have 100% influence on. On
yeah,
the results, the end result, I don't have 100% influence.
yeah,
Well, I'm proud of all those improvements we made in all those countries.
yeah.
And always we went from number 7 to number 2, and with the Belgian team from number 7 to number 2 in the world ranking. I'm proud of all those improvements we did with the foreigner players.
Yeah. I really like that because it teaches you a lot about winning, but it's also teaching you a lot about losing and everything in those moments as well, where you can improve yourself or the team. And every moment, regardless if that is the winning or the losing part, it teaches you so many valuable moments where you can be proud of also from the success and the growth that you've made, but also how did you become kind of the better player or the success of a team, etc. So I think that is really, really powerful in that moment. If you could speak to the younger Mark who just left home and start their career coaching abroad, what would you tell him?
Do it again and have more patience. So that was my problem. I didn't have patience enough to.
Yeah.
I wanted to go really fast, and sometimes it takes time, and
Yeah.
you also need to lose in life, and you need crisis in life. So, but I will do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And if somebody earlier in career is listening here today or earlier in life and they're watching and listening in, what do you hope that they take away from your journey?
Well, I always say I never won a game on my weakness. I never won a game on my weakness. So focus on your strength, and if you believe that you have a strength, go look for the position or go look for the possibilities. And sometimes it's not in your country, then you have to go abroad. And if you go abroad, you learn a lot on the AQ, the emotional coefficient. You learn a lot about inspiration. But first of all, you need to know what you really like in life. And if it's not in your countries, try to find it in another country.
Yeah. I really like that. I think it's also embracing the unknown. When you move abroad, you're
Yes.
stepping into the unknown, the uncomfortableness of your comfortable life back home and everything that you know. And you have to look at maybe your weaknesses and your strength if you move abroad. You don't have an option. You need to figure things out.
Yeah.
I think that you showed us as well how inspiring that can be. What are the learnings? And I think you have inspired many, many generations from earlier in career to older in career. And for me personally, you've always been inspiring about your leadership, your the way that you reflect and evolving, and just also to be brave and go through those challenges that came across your into your life and your English teacher. And maybe we should thank her in this moment or him. And your leadership is not always about the flaws; it's about being you and be able to grow and learn from your mistakes and listen and inspired by other people as well. So I really want to thank you a lot for coming on this podcast and yeah, share your wisdom with us as well as in your career, but also living abroad. thank you so much for joining Borderless Diaries. And we hope to talk to you many more times. But we really want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I
Mark.
really enjoyed it. Thanks.
All right. Nou, dat was hem.